Okay, folks, this is Dr. Mark Carriage with another PowerPoint on hypnotic experiences. More on hypnotherapy. This is for professional audiences only. Getting the PowerPoint up. Hopefully, you can see the PowerPoint instead of me. So, the title of this one is Why Does It Work? This is part 5 in the video series of hypnotic experience. And some introductions. I am Dr. Mark Carriage. I have a YouTube website where I'm posting all these videos on there. Um, I've been around for at least 45 years or so. Just a little bit about me. Got my bachelor's degree at SIU Edwardsville, master's in counseling in 81, along with a PhD in counseling in 85, both from St. Louis University. And I did counseling psychology internship at Texas Tech from 84 to 85. You can call me Dr. Mark, Dr. C, whatever. I've been called much worse since spending 40 years in the prison system. So I'm currently in private practice with under Chad Welch at Metro East Counseling in Swansea, Illinois, which is in the Metro East of St. Louis. I'm also consulting at TCI, which is in the Metro East of St. Louis as well. Now, in terms of the hypnosis stuff, I have to mention this. I have had the honor and privilege of traveling with my father in the early 80s to the ASH, American Society of Clinical Workshops, conferences where I met the best in the world of that era, except for the great Milton H. Erickson. I will say a lot of different people in the sexual aggression field, which I've published extensively in as well as his therapy, have invested in me, and now I'm giving it back, putting these videos online. Matthew Adams is helping me, but he is not here today. So this is the 5th part of this series, and it's only. Um, this is why does it work? Is the essence of this particular video. I hate to break the mystery, but it's not a mystery. It's not magic. As you're going to see why hypnotic stuff works. I will say there's a lot of theories and such out there. We will briefly talk about, because I don't want to get lost up in all that. But the common thread of all, what seems to be most, if not all, the theories is focused, fixated attention. It's a concentrated, focused attention and suspended immediate awareness and behavior of what you were doing or are doing at the time. It triggers a cascading effect, um, throughout the mind body. Again, the mind body is extremely connected. You can't have one without the other. It creates a pause or dazed experience, which I like to sometimes call it a state. There's the other opposition that does not call it a state. So I'm just calling it a dazed or um, paused experience. Flush out, as usual, some definition of the hypnotic experience. Um, the hypnotic experience is really a consciously focusing attention on some selected internal, external stimulus, which we call something. That's what it's called, a stimulus. By interrupting or suspending the current stream of consciousness where you are now, because you're refocused on or focused on something, um, by accessing the unconscious process, thus creating an effect throughout the mind body processes. The mind body is really cybernetically connected. I mean, you can't separate the two, or you're not going to have self functioning. So the immediate consciousness is and your behavior is temporarily suspended and creating a paused or dazed experience. There's many different forms and expressions of the hypnotic stuff. That includes what they call auto hypnosis, driving down the highway and suddenly you lost track of the last 5 miles, which is easy to do and occurs frequently amongst everybody. That's a hypnotic experience, if you will, because you're still focused at one level on the road and navigating it, or you're going to be in a ditch and end up in the hospital. But at another level, you've kind of lost track of the time frame and where things went. So you're oblivious to immediate surroundings. Some others in deep relaxation, even simple relaxation, deep breathing, and mindfulness is hypnotic. So is well, I mentioned deep breathing, any kind of deep muscle relaxation exercises, but imagery is what I wanted to talk about. Imagery is very hypnotic. To me, it's a central ingredient in the process. But the dazed experience or the paused experiences of dissociation or detachment. It's an altered experience, if you will. In the holistic view, the mind body is obviously connected via brain activity. So, what's that mean? Well, there's different experiential domains, and I've kind of took some of the literature and extended it a little bit to include the biophysiological. You can't ignore that because these processes are ongoing till the end. Cognitive, effective, behavioral overt activity, social or interpersonal, contextual. We live in a context, multiple contexts, if you will, spiritual, etc., via the mind body connection. So there's multiple levels of awareness, phenomena, being, energy, uh, including focusing on one's attention as in multiple levels of consciousness. That's kind of spread it out. Notice in the center in the diagram, hopefully the diagram's there, that you can see the mind body connection. And there's the diagram, not pretty, but displays what I'm trying to talk about. In the middle is the mind body perceptual belief system. So we start from this kind of basis of the human condition. And this is going on at various levels of intensity, various levels of awareness, various levels of this, and various levels of that. How do you like that scientific explanation of stuff? Oh, and another one I mentioned, I forgot the ultradian cycles, which occurs about every 90 minutes, unless you drink a lot of coffee like me, and it will put it off some. So, the ultradian cycles tells your body that you just want to shut down and chill out for a minute, like 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes to rejuvenate. And of course, the rest of the world, except for us, have figured that out in factories and such because they give their people periodic breaks, which are far more productive than we are over here. But they took our after World War II took our American psychological concepts and different things and applied them, and we kind of didn't until the end. At any rate, so by internally getting back to why this works, by internally focusing on selected stimuli and immediate awareness of either inside or outside events called stimuli, is suspended. Um, your immediate awareness of what you're doing is suspended because you're refocused on something else, and it's tapping into the unconscious process, creating a number of things. It's a cascading effect through the brain and mind body because via all those neurons and neural communicational networks and sending information and energy, and it creates a dissociative or a sense of detached response at one level. At another level, not so. Oh, there's that word catalepsy, which means immobilized behavior. There are a number of theories and such. They range from state based. Hypnotic stuff is contextualized with boundaries, forming a distinguished state, versus non state, which is simple hypnotic responses. Again, my theory and theme is that focused attention goes through all of it. Okay, so you have the neo dissociative theories of Ernest Hilgard. Remember, he wrote that important introduction to psychology that went on forever and ever, about 3, 4 decades. Um, he was actually from the Metro East area of St. Louis originally. Just threw that out there. But he did a lot of research, and he ended up focusing a lot of his career on the hypnotic experience, which he ended up creating this concept of the hidden observer, which means that you can float above yourself and see yourself. Um, the I'm not going to get into the history of this, but James Braid, a long time ago, created the alter state theory. Theodore did not. He was a non-state theorist. So I don't even know why I have that associated, but he's the one that broke away from the state view. Um, Milton Erickson really promoted the state. I think Ernest Rossi and them fleshed it out. But some of the Ericksonian people did not so. And so they went with more of the Barber line of thinking. Um, and a lot of the work Erickson did, he can say yes and no in terms of state or not, because he was the premier hypnotherapist in the world, period, to this day. Um, we call it Ericksonian hypnosis, which he emphasized a lot of permissive conversational type techniques. And reading some of his papers can be tedious, believe me, I'm that. But Jay Haley, for example, is an easy read. I liked Ernest Rossi's writing, but that's me. And Bill O'Hanlon is another one to read. Um, you'll pick up little nuances in different ways that Erickson did things. One of the problems was Erickson did not tell his colleagues, followers, and co-leaders or students what he was doing. So they all guessed, and we had a whole bunch of variations of what Milton H. Erickson was doing. But the, the point I want to make on this slide is that he did dive into the unconscious. He redefined the unconscious. It's not just a warehouse of repressed experiences, a source of wisdom, resources, solutions, creativity, and as we're going to find out, the futuristic point of projection. So for Erickson, hypnosis was not a rigid state, but a natural fluid experience, which again, I think the theme of all this is focused attention, concentrated attention on some stimulus. So he pioneered a bunch of stuff. Actually, Adler actually came up with metaphors and all that before Erickson, but Adler did not promote hypnosis. So Erickson did, and he utilized it in a hypnotic way. Again, he did some indirect, a lot of working on indirect suggestion. If you read Erickson, Rossi, and Rossi, 1976, you will be perplexed, and all the rest of the plexus because it is detailed, intriguing, and difficult sometimes to read. And he did a lot of metaphors in the form of storytelling and imagery and such, and the utilization approach. So he figured if something didn't work, he utilized that behavior towards the client's goals. He also adapted using the clients. Of course, he was a psychiatrist, and he called them patients. Um, language, behaviors, beliefs, etc. He was more pragmatic in his approach, if you will. Okay, so non-state people include really T.X. Barber was the first. I never met him, but he was really the first to promote the non-state theory, and he based a lot of his stuff on expectancy, motivation, role, playing roles, because he started out as a stage hypnotist way back when, and that does involve a lot of role enactment, expectancy, being motivated to do it, and being open to being to suggestibility. But we don't like to talk about stage hypnotists because we're clinically involved. So, along with the T.X. Barber social cognitive theory, which involves all I just said, um, because he said people are hypnotized because of social cues and beliefs. Um, and it's up to their interpretation, which is very constructive. So, a response set theory by Irving Kirsch. I never met him either. I would love to meet him. Um, uh, Promotes the expectational set theory that people expect whatever to happen to happen. Okay, so the cognitive behavioral theory by Michael Heap and Peter Nash, it describes exactly that, the cognitive behavioral aspects of the hypnotic experience. So you got, again, role theory by T.X. Barber. You got social cognitive theory by a guy named Nicholas Spanos, which is along the Barber theory. And then expectational set theory, also developed by originally Martin Orrin. Um, Control theory, the attentional subsystems theory by John Kilstrom really describes, and I have never met him either. I would really like to, because I think we can really collaborate on the attentional subsystem theories that he originally advocated back in the 80s. Um, I've been starting to read some of his work, and it's fascinating. Again, the central theme is attention, fixated attention. Okay, so getting back to this, and I'm trying to keep this under 20 minutes or 25 minutes now. Um, we're talking about focusing. So, what's that do to the brain? Obviously, by focusing attention, that concentrated attention, fixating attention, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same. Um, when you're doing that, it onto a stimulus or stimuli, it lights up or activates parts of your brain and suspends immediate and prior awareness. Now, Rossi always emphasized, and God bless him, I tell you what, the little bit of time I spent around him and the couple of interactions we've had outside of conference have been fascinating. This guy just, I am so fascinated by Ernest Rossi that it's unbelievable. And I should have told him that when he was alive. It's one of those shoulds that you learn from. Okay, so Rossi emphasized uh, tapping into the unconscious, but he pinpointed it at the hypothalamic limbic of the brain. That seems to be where a lot of action is going on in the brain itself. And he was big into the state and the state dependent memory learning um, system and behavior system is what he called it. Fascinating stuff. I applied it to sexual aggression, and he actually liked it, because actually I think people that offend, there's a switchboard in there where they turn it off and on. But we're not into that conversation today. So we're talking about the unconscious. I thought was really located more of the right hemisphere, based on three when he talked about the embedded metaphor. as the unconscious processing. In these brain regions, the hypothalamus, amygdala, hippocampus, insula, and it goes on and on. Um, but apparently, a lot of the unconscious is lit up everywhere, so the hypnotic stuff is lit up everywhere as well when it comes down to it. But I think the highly focused is what Ernest Rossi said in the hypothalamic limbic part of the brain. So the role in hypnosis and unconscious is just that you're consciously focusing on something and you're tapping into the unconscious. It's kind of a paradox, but at one level, you're still consciously tapping into the unconscious processes. The unconscious does regulate the bodily function, everyday functioning, and such. Also, pain perception, sensitivity. I could go on, like the emotional responses, um, a lot of emotionally charged memories and associations. Sometimes you can be charged up in a situation that's occurring. You don't even know why you're charged up because um, sometimes you're actually associating with that memory of long ago that you seem to can't pull up. This is getting more into the Freudian thing where he liked to use the word regression. In the hypnotic world, we use regression as retrieving memories. But it's said that every time you retrieve a memory, you actually change the meaning of it slightly, if so slightly. Okay. This brings to awareness to our internal bodily sensations shaped by beliefs at the unconscious level and or events that could be trauma or not, or could be just developmental events that mean something. By the way, we attach the meaning to the event. The event doesn't attach us to the meaning. We actually experience the event and by our thinking framework attach meanings to it. Like one time, I remember in the late 80s, I was at Centralia Correctional Center. We had like a brief riot about ready to emerge in a hostage situation. In other words, they locked the doors. We were locked into the dietary, and it was a fascinating set of dynamics that was occurring. And it all ended as fast as it occurred because a gang chief said, "Sit back down. We don't want to ruin the upcoming supposed to be family picnic, but I called it orgies and drug fest because that's what really happened. If we want to be real about it, if we don't want to be real, we'll pretend it was a family freaking picnic. Anyway, so I didn't even realize that I was supposed to be traumatized because my unconscious focus was on the dynamics of what was going on. It all ended, nobody got hurt. And mediate the unconscious and the brain together mediates the attention and emotional conflict. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the brain functions. If you want the PowerPoint, you send me an email, mcarich@aol.com. I don't know. I'm so new at this stuff that I don't know if the PowerPoint's up and running, or if I'm just in the picture, or if it's a black picture. I do want to go to the thalamus. Seems to be a very important role in the brain, kind of a relay station for sensory information. So the hypnotic stuff taps into that and dampening and controlling external stimulus because you're focused on something. Okay, brainwaves. I think in the deep, very deep trance stuff, you're going to hit the theta is what you're wanting to target. Um, Possibly the delta and gamma ray frequencies as well. But you can see it all starts and goes down with the beta, alpha, theta, um, delta, and gamma brainwaves. Theta seems to be the one that we really